Tom Richards had always believed in the value of loyalty. Loyalty to family, to friends, and to the quiet routines that shaped his life. He lived in a quiet neighborhood in suburban Ohio, where the days were predictable and the evenings were filled with home-cooked meals, laughter from his 2 children, and the comforting presence of his wife, Emily. On the outside, their life was the kind that others envied. Modest, yes, but full of love and stability. Tom owned a small but successful home remodeling business. He worked hard, but never let it take him away from what mattered most: his family. Emily had been his high school sweetheart. They had grown up together, fallen in love in their senior year, and married a few years later. She worked part-time as an elementary school teacher, which allowed her to spend more time at home with their kids. Their partnership felt balanced. Emily managed the household with care and patience, and Tom made sure they had everything they needed. Their children, Noah, age 9, and Lily, 6, were the center of their world. Weekends were spent at soccer games, birthday parties, or visiting the local zoo. Everything felt normal. Everything felt safe. Then, there was Jason Wells. He had been Tom's best friend since childhood. They'd met in the 2nd grade and had been inseparable ever since. Jason was the kind of friend who would show up without being asked, the guy who remembered birthdays, lent tools, and showed up to every family barbecue with a 6-pack and a smile. To Tom, Jason was more like a brother than a friend. Their bond was something he never questioned. He had helped Tom renovate his first home, had been his best man at the wedding, and even stepped in as a godfather to little Noah. It became a regular sight to see Jason at the Richards home. He helped fix leaky faucets, joined them for family dinners, and even babysat the kids once or twice when Tom and Emily had a rare date night. Emily and Jason got along well, maybe even too well, but Tom never thought anything of it. Why would he? These were the 2 people he trusted most in the world. If anything, he felt grateful that they cared for each other, that Emily didn't mind his best friend being so present in their lives. Looking back, Tom would try to pinpoint the moment things started to shift, but in those early days, everything felt harmonious. There was no sign of the storm that was slowly building behind closed doors. No odd behavior. No reason to suspect that the people he loved most were hiding a devastating secret from him. He didn't know that the very foundation of his life, his marriage, his friendships, and his belief in loyalty, would soon be shattered. In his eyes, he was a man with a perfect life. But perfection, as he would come to learn, can be a very convincing illusion. It started with small, almost unnoticeable changes. Emily, once warm and affectionate, became distant. Her mood shifted unpredictably. One day she was calm and collected, the next irritable and withdrawn. Tom chalked it up to stress. Her job at the school had grown more demanding, and balancing work with the kids was never easy. He tried to be supportive, taking on more around the house and giving her space when she needed it. He believed this phase would pass, like so many others in their years together. Then came the late nights. Emily began staying up long after Tom had gone to bed. She claimed she was catching up on lesson planning or grading papers. Sometimes he would wake in the middle of the night to find the light from her phone glowing in the darkness. She would quickly put it down, saying she was just reading an article or texting a fellow teacher. Tom wanted to believe her. He didn't want to question the trust that had always been the foundation of their relationship. But it wasn't just Emily who seemed different. Jason had become more reserved. He still dropped by now and then, but something in his demeanor had changed. He no longer made eye contact with Tom the way he used to. Their conversations felt forced, filled with awkward silences and quick goodbyes. Tom noticed that Jason avoided being alone in a room with Emily, yet somehow he always seemed to show up when Tom wasn't around. It was confusing, but not enough to raise alarm bells, at least not yet. As the weeks turned into months, Tom began to feel like a stranger in his own home. There was a subtle tension in the air, an invisible barrier that separated him from the people closest to him. He tried to bring back the normalcy. He planned a weekend getaway for the family, hoping to reconnect. Emily agreed, but her enthusiasm was lukewarm. The trip went smoothly on the surface, but beneath it all, Tom could sense her distance. She smiled for the kids, posed for photos, but her eyes never met his the way they used to. One evening, while helping Noah with his homework, Tom glanced over at Emily sitting on the couch. She was staring at her phone, her lips slightly curled into a smile she tried to hide. It wasn't a smile he recognized. Something about it made his stomach twist. That night, long after the kids were asleep, curiosity got the better of him. Emily had left her laptop open on the dining table, and he noticed an unfamiliar email notification pop up. The sender was labeled simply as J. His pulse quickened. He clicked it open. The message wasn't long, but it was enough. Affectionate, familiar, and undeniably inappropriate. It spoke of missing her, of stolen moments, and of how difficult it was to pretend everything was normal. The words echoed in Tom's mind like a siren. He sat there, frozen, 1,000 thoughts racing through his head. His hands trembled. Everything he had ignored, everything he had justified, suddenly made sense. The change in Emily, the silence from Jason. It wasn't stress or coincidence. It was betrayal. And this was just the beginning. Tom didn't sleep that night. The words from the email replayed over and over in his mind like a broken record. Every line confirmed the truth he didn't want to believe. His wife was having an affair, and the J in the message could only mean one person, Jason. The realization felt like a punch to the gut. He wanted to scream, to confront them, but something held him back. He needed to be sure. He needed proof. Emotions could lie, but facts wouldn't. Over the next few days, Tom became someone else, silent, observant, methodical. He told no one what he had found. He acted normal around Emily, kissed his kids goodnight, went to work as usual. But behind the scenes, he began gathering information. He scrolled through her email inbox, checking for more messages from Jay. Most had been deleted, but one or two had slipped through, and they told a story of secret meetings, coded language, and shared guilt. There were no explicit details, but enough to confirm that what was happening went beyond friendship. Tom moved on to their shared bank accounts. He found strange withdrawals, small amounts, but consistently missing every couple of weeks. Hotel names. One was just 20 miles out of town. Another in the same city where Emily had claimed to attend a Teacher S conference 2 months prior. It all lined up too perfectly to be a coincidence. He started checking Jason's social media accounts, which suddenly seemed quieter than usual. Fewer posts, fewer photos. But when he dug deeper, he found an old tagged photo from a local pub taken just a week ago, the same night Emily had told him she was working late at school. Jason was there. So was Emily. Neither of them had mentioned it. They weren't sitting together in the picture, but both were clearly present. That tiny clue felt monumental. Tom decided to install a basic GPS tracker on Emily's car. It wasn't something he ever thought he would do, But the situation had changed. The following Friday, she claimed she was going to a curriculum planning session after school. Tom watched her leave, waited an hour, then checked the tracker. She was nowhere near the school. She had driven toward the same hotel he had seen on the bank statement. The tracker stayed put for over 3 hours. That night, Tom said nothing. He laid next to her in bed, pretending to sleep, while inside his chest a storm was raging. The betrayal was no longer a theory. It was a fact. But instead of exploding, he remained quiet. He began photographing the bank transactions, saving screenshots of messages, backing up browser histories. He even began meeting with a lawyer in secret. He had one goal now, to protect his children and take back control of his life. The love he once had for Emily had been replaced with something cold and unfamiliar. As for Jason, the man he considered a brother, he was now a ghost walking through Tom's memories. The truth had been exposed, but the fallout hadn't even begun. Tom was just getting started. Tom waited until everything was in place. The lawyer had advised him to remain calm, to gather documentation, and to avoid confrontation until the paperwork was ready. It was one of the hardest things he'd ever done. Each day, he had to look Emily in the eyes and pretend not to know. Each time she kissed their children goodnight or smiled across the dinner table, a knot twisted tighter in his stomach. But he held it together. Not out of fear, out of strategy. He knew one emotional outburst could cost him everything in court. When the moment finally came, it wasn't dramatic. Emily returned home one afternoon to find a manila envelope sitting on the kitchen counter. Inside were divorce papers and a printed summary of the evidence Tom had collected. No note, no confrontation, just the raw truth laid out in black and white. Emily was blindsided. She didn't scream or cry. Instead, she stood frozen in the kitchen, holding the documents as if they were burning her hands. She called out for Tom, but he didn't respond. He had taken the kids to his sister's house for the weekend. He did not want them to see what was coming next. That night, Tom returned alone. Emily sat on the couch, the papers still beside her, untouched. She looked hollow, like a shadow of the woman he once knew. When she finally spoke, it wasn't to deny the affair. She admitted everything: the secrecy, the lies, the meetings with Jason. She said it started as an emotional connection, a harmless escape, but it turned physical within months. Jason had been there during a time when she felt invisible, she explained. He understood her in a way Tom didn't anymore. But even as she said the words, her voice shook. Tom didn't respond. He simply listened and walked away. What surprised him more than her confession was what came after. Jason disappeared. Almost overnight, he quit his job at the local mechanic shop, shut down his social media accounts, and left town. No goodbye, no apology, not even a message to Emily. It was as if he had been swallowed by the guilt and fled from the wreckage he helped create. People in town whispered theories. Some said he moved out west. Others believed he was hiding from more than just scandal. But Tom didn't care anymore. Jason was gone, and that chapter was closed. Emily, left behind, was forced to face the consequences alone. She moved into a small apartment near the school where she worked. The custody agreement favored Tom, as he had proven to be the more stable and prepared parent. He didn't deny Emily visitation, but the relationship between her and the children became strained. Noah stopped asking about her after a few weeks. Lily cried the first few times she left after visits. Tom did everything he could to keep their world steady. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was learning to live with the quiet that followed. The absence of Jason. The hollow presence of Emily. The shift in how the kids looked at both of them. The family they had built was no longer broken. It was gone. And in its place stood a man rebuilding from nothing, learning how to breathe again in a world where everything he believed had been a lie. In the months that followed the divorce, Tom moved forward with a sense of determination that surprised even himself. The pain didn't vanish, but it dulled, settling into a quiet ache that he carried with him. The house that once echoed with laughter and family memories felt haunted now, a shell filled with reminders of everything he had lost. So he sold it, packed up the belongings he needed, gave away what he didn't, and found a modest new home on the other side of town. A fresh start, not just for him, but for Noah and Lily too. The transition wasn't easy. The children were confused, especially Lily, who still asked why Mommy didn't live with them anymore. Tom answered gently but honestly, never speaking badly about Emily, only saying that sometimes adults make choices that change things. Therapy sessions became a regular part of their routine, one for the kids and one for Tom himself. Talking helped. Listening helped more. Slowly, the three of them began to settle into a new rhythm, different from before but no less real. Emily tried to maintain a relationship with the children, but it was strained. She never spoke about Jason again, and Tom didn't ask. As far as he knew, Jason never contacted her after leaving. His name became a silent weight in the background, a person no one mentioned, but everyone remembered. Rumors about where he had gone faded over time, replaced by newer gossip and other town scandals. To Tom, it didn't matter. Jason was a ghost now, someone who had once played a lead role in his life and then vanished without a trace. Tom threw himself into his work, using his hands and focus to rebuild more than just kitchens and living rooms. He was rebuilding his own sense of purpose. He took on more projects, hired a few local workers, and expanded the business beyond what he thought possible. For the first time in years, he began to feel pride in something again. Not the kind of pride that came from comfort or routine, but the hard-earned kind that only comes after deep loss. New friendships formed, slowly and cautiously. Trust didn't come easily anymore, but that was okay. Tom wasn't in a hurry. He found joy in the small things. Watching his son score a goal at a soccer game, hearing Lily sing from the back seat on the way to school, finishing a job and seeing the satisfaction on a client's face. These moments didn't erase the betrayal, but they gave it less power. 2 years later, Tom was asked to speak at a local community event about personal resilience. Standing in front of the crowd, he shared parts of his story, not the scandal, but the recovery. He talked about betrayal, heartbreak, and the importance of protecting your peace. He didn't name names or dwell on the past. He ended with one simple line that resonated deeply with everyone listening. Sometimes the people you trust most will hurt you the worst, but what matters is who you become after they're gone. And in that moment, Tom wasn't just a man who had survived. He was a man who had rebuilt, who had grown stronger, and who had learned that even after everything falls apart, there's still life waiting to be lived.